All right, we're trying out something different here. Talking about this trade right here that we took on the Nasdaq today. What happened? What was the setup? What were we looking at? So right now we're looking at the 3-minute chart here. 3-minute chart right now. What we had was a reversal off of this pivot point down there at the 14,929. So you can see pushing back up, basically starting to break back up. And then we're looking for that higher low. We put in a higher low right there at the 50s. We had this push from the 50s up there to the 15,000s. Then we pulled back. Now, the setup that we were looking for was basically a reclaim of the VWAP on the QQQ here. Let me pull this way. Trying to make this very short and sweet for you. But basically getting above the QQQ VWAP earlier, right? So we get back above the VWAP right here. We push up, we pulled back, and then we get back above it one more time. So this is the QQQ chart, pivot points, the 14 EMA. This is the 2-minute chart and kind of the way that we're looking at this. So now really what I want to focus on here is a couple different things. Like, what are we looking for in terms of the push? Like, where could we possibly go? What's our target? Where's our stop? And all of those things. So I'm going to be honest. I ended up getting in here. I said on the live stream, I was like, I think this is a little bit of a risky entry here, but I'm going to try to get long for this break back above 80. We ended up getting a fake out. We broke above the 80 right here. We pulled back. We then turned this area again into support. I got stopped out literally at the bottom of this candle. And guess what happened after that? It went from the 60s all the way up there to almost 20. That high on that candle right there, 1875. So, you know, I told people, like, what could I have done differently? You know, looking back at this, we had a couple things. You know, we had the higher low. We were respecting that. I jumped in here at the 70s. So the issue is when I jumped in the 70s, I can only really risk 10 points at that point. At that point, 10 points. So, you know, really, I try to not risk more than 10 points here. And if I would have had a better entry, well, then yeah, it would have been a better overall trade. The problem here as well is even if I was waiting for a push back above like the 80s here, it wouldn't have worked out because it would have stopped me out either way. So the real, I would say, kind of focus here is like, how tight do we get? The tighter that we get before the breakout, the better, right? The tighter the price action, like these two candles right here, holding, and then that breakout, it's going to be a lot better price action when we get those nice candles. Although we did have kind of tight candles right there. So it was definitely like looking like this, the break above the 80s. And it happens, right? Like it just happens. Sometimes you get these little fake outs and then the market moves higher. And, you know, looking back at it, what could I have done differently? I don't really think there's much I could have done differently. I took the trade, didn't work out. We did it live on YouTube, but you can see the setup. This is a very typical type of Patrick Wieland type of setup that we talk about in the Market Flow Trader community. Talk about this live on YouTube all the time. So basically putting in that higher low after bouncing off that pivot point, we put in a higher low. Once we put in this higher low right here, well, what are we thinking is going to happen next? Well, if we start to kind of push back up here, guess what? Now we're starting to push back up. We pull back again into here, kind of got that double bottom off of the 50, 60 level. What I like to think about as well is, are we turning previous area of what? Resistance, this 50 area? Are we turning it into support? Yes, we're turning it into support there. We had that little area of support there as well. That was a beautiful move. I mean, this is the type of move that you could make, you know, a lot of money on it. The problem is we just had this one little fake out candle right there. You know, if we go and look at the 2-minute chart, would it have been better on the 2-minute chart to wait for that? I mean, either way, you would have got in trouble there because of that just indecisiveness. So how do you protect yourself from that type of action? I would say it's really comes down to just kind of looking at the candlesticks a little bit better and trying to see like what is kind of going on there. You know, are we kind of chopping around at this level before breaking out? Did we get like a really tight candle before breaking out? You know, where's our target at? Obviously our targets on this move, we're pushing back up. We're looking for a target of trying to retest these highs, which we ended up doing. We had the VWAP there as well, I think at the 03. So we pushed up there into that earlier resistance. Anytime that there's basically resistance that's close by, that's kind of always my target. Like we're going to push up into that level, test it. If we don't get through it, then obviously we're going to pull back from there. So the market up, the market down, but I want to give you guys a little breakdown. I think today was just all about timing. You know, we had a big kind of chop area at open. The market pulled back to this pivot point. We had this move down to the pivot point. Nice little break of this trend line that we traded. The move down to the pivot point there. I actually ended up getting stopped out on this when it pushed back up when I was short through here, and then it pushed back up into the 50s and then sold to the pivot. But in general, you know, I think the best thing you could do is just really kind of wait for these moments where you're like, okay, like this thing really wants to go. Like it really wants to do something. I think we had a similar move kind of later on in the day. I do love these ideas of kind of putting in higher lows. You know, this big move here from the 50s up there to the 95s, broke through this resistance there earlier. So it's kind of interesting when you're looking, you know, obviously for these higher lows off the pivot points, you know, tapping double bottom there off that pivot point there on the 2-minute chart. Bang, bang, bang. That pushed back up. We pushed up here to the 500s. Once again, we pulled back. So now the question is, do we find support here from earlier and bounce here and try to move back up? It's really kind of, you know, market moves in waves. And the waves are just always forming. So that was it. Sometimes you're early, sometimes you're late. The party never stops. The market keeps moving, and you got to take the trades that you get. So there it is. The setup today. We had some moves overall, pretty big chop. If you really like just look at it here, the 5-minute chart, I mean, it's just pretty much in this range here. And guess where we're at as well. If you look at the 15-minute chart, we're pretty much just in the middle of that 15-minute range. So this right here, 15-minute range in the middle of it. Where's it going to go? Up, down, all around. Who knows? So there it is. You know, hopefully you got some kind of info out of this. I think I kind of rambled on a little bit more than I thought I would, but the more that I look at this, I'm like, what could I have done different? You know, there's a lot of different ways to look at it. You can always sit here in hindsight and blah, blah, blah. What you do in the moment when you're trading is totally different than what you do sometimes looking in hindsight. It's easy in hindsight to be like, oh, well, I should have bought right there and sold right there. You know, it's fucking a lot easier to trade in hindsight, my friends. If you guys haven't hit that like button, subscribe button, there it is. Let's go.